Today's session was suggested by many of you. So thank you to everyone who suggested this. The idea, and we will be doing one such session every weekend, right? The goal of the session is that, see, in the community, like one great thing is that in Scalar community, we have so many people coming from very, very diverse backgrounds. With their hard work, they have already, to some extent, of course, the career growth is a lifelong journey. So I'm sure that even people who have achieved a great milestone, they will keep growing more. But they have already achieved one good, important milestone of their career growth. For some, it could be getting into the kind of company they wanted to get into. For some, it could be getting promoted to a role that they wanted to. So we have Aaron with us today. So brief introduction of Aaron. Aaron graduated in 2020. He did engineering, but not in computer science. He was in electronics, and I'll let Aaron detail more about that. So Aaron started his career in the sales team. So he worked across multiple companies for almost two and a half years in business development. I have some interesting nugget here that we'll come to later. And then Aaron, like in between around, I think mid 2022, Aaron decided that he want to kind of like on the long term, when you think about the long term career, just like everyone here, he decided that I would put some strong efforts, investment into learning and kind of switching over the the career trajectory. Today, after good hard work, about 1.5 months back, Aaron joined eClinical Works, which is a very large American company into medical data. Again, Aaron will detail more on that. And for 1.5 months, Aaron have been in this role. So we will go into details. The goal is that we bring in Scalar community members from very diverse backgrounds. And goal being, see that every community goes forward when we like. It's very natural that in the journey of any big goal, there will be ups and downs. There will be periods of self-doubt. There will be periods of kind of, that feeling that what is going to happen. But when we are part of a community where there are so many role models that they can look up to, who are also there to support you and help you, then as a whole community, all of us can achieve so much more than what we could do otherwise. Right? So let's start. Aaron, over to you. If you could maybe start with telling us about your, the initial career journey, then when you just graduated, how that was. And then we'll come to your coursework part, that how did you study, how did you build all these things.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Abhimanyu, for having this session. It's really an honor speaking with you and all the learners here. Thank you for the kind words. I already see many questions. I'll be covering all of those, based on this entire session. Everything will be covered. But starting with how my journey started, as Abhimanyu said, like I completed my graduation in the year 2020 from Symbiosis Pune, Symbiosis Institute of Technology, and my course that I did, it was electronics and telecommunication, the stream that I chose. Post that, we all know COVID struck, so placements went really for a toss for majority of the colleges that were there, and I was eager looking for a job, so I did not want to waste time. October of 2020, I joined Byju's in the business development team that was there. In Byju's, I was working with Byju's for 1 whole year. Right, 1 whole year I was with Byju's, after which it's really now the fun story starts, where I joined Scalar in their business development team. So I worked there for around 7 to 8 months, and post that I just did some sort of self-reflection where I thought, is this what I wanted to be doing for, let's say, 10 years down the line? 10 years down the line, where do I see myself in terms of a sales journey? And this is not what I wanted in terms of a future perspective, which is when I left Scalar. I did a bit of inspection, did a bit of research as to what would be good for me. And since I was from the technical background, ultimately, I thought I'd never really worked in a technical background. And since I was part of the Scalar's business development team, I knew about the DSML program that we all here are part of, right? I did a bit of more research on that, and then decided that at the end of 2022, I would be joining Scalar full-time in terms of learning. I decided to join the DSML program. So since the end of 2022, that is, I think, October, November 2022. Till now, like my program is not yet done. I'm still a part of the program. I was full-time a part of the DSML program, and there was just one fixed goal that I had in my mind, that I had given myself 1 year's time, right? Because we know the analytics module ends with around 9 months time. So I had given myself 1 year's time where I had decided in my head that I would be landing a data analyst role anyhow. That was a goal I had set up for myself. So since the end of 2022, full time, I was immersed into that. And yeah, this is how my journey has been. And after 1 year, I would say even more than 1 year, in December, I got one job offer. And in January, I got another job offer, which was eClinical Works. And I joined then, and here I am as a data analyst.
Fantastic. Aaron, I think as a follow-up, I would maybe get into the more specifics of your studies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, and given you gave multiple, like did a truckload of applications, kind of gave many interviews, right? I would first like you to detail all the learners on that in your interview process. What all things that you feel that are the things that people should focus on most, and particularly from your perspective, that someone who comes from a non-technical job history, what you see in the interviews, what will be your preparation strategy tips for the people who are currently preparing for the interview?
Okay. If I talk strictly in terms of preparation, right? See, for me, everything like Python, SQL, what we all have studied, this was all very new to me, right? I had never studied this in my engineering as well. So initially what I was following is I was just following the scalar curriculum that was there, right? But if I talk about in terms of, for me, landing a role, a fresher data analyst role, what learnings were most important in my journey, I could emphasize is mainly two things. One is the SQL module needs to be taken very, very seriously. Because that is something I took very, very seriously when I started preparation, right? Once the SQL module was done, then comes I believe the Python libraries module, if I'm not wrong. These two modules were in a span of 3 months collectively, I believe. These 3 months, I focused a lot on SQL and Python libraries, not in just in terms of learning, because learning the concepts when you're a part of the lecture, at that moment you understand, okay, I'm understanding this, but actually practicing hands-on on various websites, like scalar assignments is something that I would do without a question, right? But other than that, practicing SQL questions on, let's say, lead code, practicing Python libraries questions on other websites, that is something I would do every day, right? I would do maybe 5-10 questions in the morning, at night. This is something that I would do, right? So if I would say what emphasis you have to, again, interviews, see, company to company, they differ, right? But more or less, I would say 80%, the crux of your interview will be based on questions on SQL, questions on Python libraries.
Right.
As well as the way you've designed your resume. If you said, I have done this XYZ project, they would ask you questions based on that project. Because if you have no experience, right, you're from a non-tech background, they know you have not done anything on the job. So they will focus on the projects that you've done, right? I'm sure we know that we have done Netflix case studies, right? For people that who have worked on it. They would ask you questions based on that. Like, how did you do data pre-processing? They would give you a sample data set and say that, import this in Python. Yeah, even Target as well, right? Target was for SQL. So they could give you a dummy data set, similar questions, what you covered in your case study, they will ask you in the interview. You have to solve it. So again, basics is something that has to be very strong, right? Topics is something that you should know very, very well, because that same topic you're going to use on your job, on your interview, right? Questions may be different, but again, if the basics and topics are very, very strong, I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. As well as why you must be thinking, why have I emphasized on these two and maybe not on data visualization, right? Here in Scalar, along with we have learned Tableau, correct? There may be, when you're applying in a company, that their visualization tool is Power BI, correct? So they are not going to ask you questions on Tableau, because for their requirement, there is Power BI, right? So some companies may ask. For me, no company asked me questions on visualization, right? They asked me questions on visualization based on Python, right? Python libraries. That is something that I had to learn or I had to face. But in my case, SQL Python libraries is something that we have to focus on the most.
Makes sense. There are a couple of questions that are related, so maybe I'll pick them.
Yes.
One was that there were a few questions around that when you were studying,
Mm-hmm.
so at that time, were you working at Scalar also and studying, or did you leave the job and then?
Okay. Yes. So as I said, right, in June 2022, I left Scalar, right? I took 2-3 months off. I am very, very, I would say, grateful, and I'm very, very thankful that my parents had given me that freedom. They were behind me that you can take the best decision. Again, my parents, after it was a decent paying job, right, at Scalar. Leaving that job, friends, family, they were a bit concerned. Like, why would you do that? Why would you take a step back, right, and learn and prepare for something we don't know? Are you going to get the same salary? Are you not going to get the salary? We do not know that. But again, my parents ultimately had that belief in me that whatever decision you are going to take, it would be the right decision. I'm very lucky that way. So I had left Scalar and I had decided that, see, there were opportunities where I could work and study as well. But I went for the decision that I will give my full time to this, to my learnings. I do not want to balance both and maybe do haphazard work in my job and in my learning as well. That is something I didn't want to do. So I gave my 100% to the Scalar program. If that
On this, I will also kind of double click a little bit because this is a question that often people ask that, I am doing in a job and like, should I leave or should I continue? And generally, like just like all the things, there is no black and white, yes and no answers, right?
Correct.
What I would emphasize on is that anyone who is considering this, as Aaron mentioned, that it is very important that you have a strong support ecosystem, right? Because your studies are like being able to focus on learn, because ultimately your outcome is going to come on the basis of what learning you do, right? And for that, it is very important that you are at a place of comfort and peace. Now, if you do have strong financial support and moral support of, around the people around you, which might be situation for some, might not be situation for some, right? So the decision to quit job and do this full time should only be taken if you are 100% certain that even if you do not earn for, let's say, 9 months or 12 months, you do not have any discomfort with that. You do not have responsibilities on you that you must fulfill, because in that case, it can get very stressful. Right? On the other hand, however, of course, just the way, let's say, when we go to our undergraduate education or postgraduate education, it is totally obvious that you would not be earning for that period. And in the family support ecosystem, it is clear that only after certain time, let's say 12 months, etc., you will have the earning potential. Only do that if that is the situation. Overall, see, program is designed in a way where it could be managed with a job, right? Because it demands only 3 hours in a day. It doesn't demand 8-9 hours in a day. Right? So that is the my advice on. So another follow-up question from Abhishek is that how did you manage all the assignments, business case studies? Would you recommend any strategy or process that you followed and found to be very useful when solving the questions and assignments?
Okay, so talking about questions and assignments, right? As I had said that I was doing this full time, correct? So when it came about solving questions and assignments, it was never really a burden for me, if I'll be honest, because I was in the batch Monday, Wednesday, Friday, correct? And I was in the evening batch, so the lectures would be 9 to 11, 9 to 11:30, correct? I would attend those lectures. Next day in the morning, what would happen is basically I would be solving those questions. I would be solving those assignments, whatever is given. I would be doing that. So that is how basically, and whenever the business case study, whenever the project would be assigned, that is something I would start working on immediately, and I would not waste time, because again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would keep Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday to solve questions, solve the project that is there as well.
Got it. Aritra has a very good question, which is that right now Aritra is going through the machine learning module, etc.
Okay.
How to revise everything and suggest what kind of job one should apply to. Aritra, given the second part is more, this is your individual profile, it might be slightly different. But Aaron, maybe if you can talk about that, what are the strategies that you might have employed to revise everything? Because some of the things at the time of interview you might have studied and learned them long back.
Correct.
What was your revision strategy?
So
And
revision
also completely from a non-tech background with a career.
Okay.
So, in that context.
Okay. So if I talk about revision, what I would follow is, firstly, whenever a lecture would happen, right, I have a thing of maintaining notes in the form of book. Like many people like digital notes, but I like writing down notes where I think when I write down, I remember more. So I actually have a complete set of notes for all lectures done, right? Whenever teachings were happening. After I felt confident, like after the analytics module was done for me, right? What I would do was I started looking up interview questions. Okay. On YouTube, just interview questions, product-based companies, service-based companies, whatever questions are there. And I had a separate notebook, specially for interviews, where I would just make notes of important, let's say, queries, important questions, important, let's say, subjective questions, right? Which an interviewer could ask based on, let's say, Python, or let's say, SQL, or what window functions we would use here, right? Something like that. So those sort of notes I had made separately, which was like my interview questions book. And before an interview, I would refer that. If I feel I'm not remembering some topic, right, that comes to my mind, then I would go to my original notes. So that is how I was, sort of revising, and that is how I had done my sort of preparation for my interviews as well as from my live classes as well.
No, that's fantastic. Aritra, I hope that answers your question. Now, next, Satvik and Durlabh have similar question, which is about. So Durlabh's question is that, can you elaborate on what kind of questions you were asked about career gap, and did you feel that your career gap affect your interview process or your job hunting process? How did you navigate that?
Okay, for me, I did not have even one question about career gap, if I'm honest with you. Because I started applying. See, I started applying in August 2023. Okay. August 2023 to, I would say, December 2023. Like I could say almost 6 months I was just applying. Correct. If you ask me what questions were asked about my career gap, right? No questions were asked about my career gap, because for them, I was like under a program. Like I was learning. So they did not consider that as career gap, for my case at least, right? So see, I gave a total, like the number of the hundreds and hundreds of applications that I, applied to, companies I applied to. I got 4 calls, right? 1 out of which 2 I did not clear. I was rejected, right? But in all of these 4, not one question was asked about career gap. Not one question was asked that, how have you been preparing or anything. They just saw my skills. They would ask me questions based on that. So again, if you are picked for the interview based on my experience, I don't think they should question what have you been doing for so long, right? If they have picked you, means they see some potential in you. That is why their questions are going to be based on your skill set, based on your resume, and not questioning. See, again, mine was a gap for 1 year. For 5-6 years, maybe they can ask. But a gap for my 1 year duration, no questions in terms of career gap was asked.
So don't worry about that. Remove that kind of barrier from your mind that because of career gap I might face difficulty. Focus on becoming really strong with, as Aaron mentioned, that particularly for the data analytics role, it is the very deep command, very strong command on MySQL, very strong command on Python libraries, Python language. Thirdly, on the EDA, as he mentioned, that they want to see whether all the company, every single company that you apply to might be using different visualization frameworks. Some might use Tableau, some might use Power BI, some might use something else. Some might be using just Python for the visualization, right? What they want to see is that could you learn whatever they use quickly and efficiently or not? Do you understand concept of data visualization? Focus on that. Do not worry about career gap. It's common. Like almost everyone gets, Vaibhav has a question which is again related to that, shortlisted in only 4 out of 100 plus application. Is it because of career break or any other resume mistake you were making earlier? Vaibhav, before Aaron responds to that, this is, I think, an important point that I want to emphasize on, which often people who are kind of going through a job hunt process for the first time feel. 4 shortlist out of 100 applications is very natural, to be very candid. Even if I, let's say, want to hunt for job one day, I will also have similar sort of application to shortlist ratio. The reason for that is that every single job that I'm applying to, it is impossible for me to be the best fitting resume for that job. There are so many people applying for it. So when applying for the job, do not worry about not hearing back from them. You should not worry about that. You just have to apply to every single job. Like I would say that all of us should think that I will apply to at least few hundred jobs. And whatever I hear back from, I'll process with them. Aaron, over to you.
Yes.
And we should also a little bit talk about your interview experiences, the
Yeah.
rejections in them, and how.
Yeah. So I'll give a little detail about my experience. So all of the learners would actually understand that it's a normal process to go through, and it's nothing new. So for me, as I said, I started applying in August. Like I had decided a timeline where August 15th is something where I had got my resume done ready, and I would just start applying. Right. Again, it was just my bad luck that the 2023, and our bad luck, honestly, that 2023 job market was quite bad. We all know it, right? Now the thing is that when I started applying for first, I would say 3 months, I did not get any response. Forget rejection email. I was not getting any response on it, right? There were hardly any fresher data analyst roles, business analyst roles, and I was not getting any sort of reply from them. When the first reply that I got, the first interview that I gave was through the Scalar portal for the product analyst intern role, right here at Scalar. That was my first interview that I had. And I reached the final round, I gave the final round, but did not get to. There was only one opening that was there. And I really thought that I would get that role, right? But somehow I did not get it. I had lots of feelings going through my head. Like I was dejected. I was under a lot of pressure as well. All sort of emotions are completely normal because I went through them as well. And you feel dejected. It is very, very normal. You feel bad because after applying so much, you got one chance and we did not get selected, right? That is something that I've gone through. Ahead of that, this was one thing that I got through applying, right? Just plainly through applying. The next 3 interviews that I landed were only through referrals. Right. So I think one thing is very important for everyone who's going to apply, who's looking for a role, that referrals is something that could help you all, a lot. Because when a person from the company is referring you, that interview or that thing is picked first, that resume, to give you a shot or no. Right. So the second interview that I landed was in KPMG. Again, I reached the final round. Again, I did not get selected for, it was a data analyst role again, right? So after that point, like I was down in the dumps, honestly. Like I was very, very under a lot of pressure. I thought, like, at that point, it even crossed my mind that have I made a mistake, taking such a decision. It came across my mind. It's completely fine. And again, my parents were there to motivate me. I had a special set of people, special friends who were there, who always kept me motivated, right? That this is something that you have chosen, you have to stick to it. Then in December, again through a referral, there is a company called Info Analytica in Ahmedabad. There I landed an interview and there I got my first job offer directly in December end. And after that, my interviews with eClinical Works, which again was a product company, I had total of 7 rounds of interviews there. And that also I landed the interview due to a referral, right? So after 7 rounds of interview, finally in January, I got an offer for eClinical Works, and then I joined eClinical Works as a data analytics engineer. So yeah, this has been like my journey in terms of applying, in terms of landing an interview and clearing.
Fantastic. Aaron, I have multiple follow-up questions on this.
Sure.
So I'll pick few from the chat. And as I said, every week we will continue doing these sessions, or be it connecting with each other on LinkedIn. Some of us might even be in the same cities. I think this is the great place to find those friends who can lift you up, not only just in terms of motivation, but these are also people who are in the same industry who can give you very very pointed, targeted advice basis what difficulty you are facing. But are you facing some difficulty in MySQL? Here is what you should be doing, right? So I think, Hitesh, to your question, here in this community you can find those friends if you don't find them around. But so it's all about how we leverage the community for the positivity. Another follow-up question, Aaron, I had from when you were explaining about referrals, and I think here Vaibhav has also asked that, how did you build these relations, find this network for the referrals, either within Scalar community or on LinkedIn? If you can share tips on that, because it's a very networking, of course, is a super powerful tool if done in the right way.
Correct.
Right? 99% of the times, guys, that the person you will get referral from, you might not even have known that person in person from before. Often people think that only if I have a brother or sister, then only I can get that. It's not so. It's just about using your networking capabilities in the right way. So Aaron, if you can double click a little bit upon that how did you network with the right people? How did you find that?
So in terms of networking, the first step of networking is the people who are closest to you, your family, your uncles, aunties, cousins, friends. Go to them, ask them, is anyone working in an analytics company? Is anyone working in IT? Do you know anyone? Can you send my resume? That is first step. Correct? Tell them I am looking for a data analyst role, business analyst role. I am ready for interviews. Could you just send in my resume to anyone who you know in your company? That is the first thing you can do. Second, what I did was, LinkedIn was something where I was adding people, I was reaching out to them, right? I had a message formulated, right? I would like to pin that message down. So maybe guys, you guys could use the same message as well, because this was something that I was using to reach out to people. And again, not many people replied to me. The reply rate for me was, let's say, 30%, right? Out of 10, maybe 3 people replied to me. But this is something that I would, let's say I am, let's say I am approaching XYZ person from, let's say, TCS, right? I saw that there is a data analyst opening at TCS, right? I went to the website, I saw. So I would just pin this message saying, hey, XYZ, thank you for connecting. This is an example where I reached out to someone working at Tradens, right? For whatever company you're looking for, I would pin this message. They would see this message. 30% reply, hi Aaron, this is my email. Share your resume. I will forward it. See, that is the most you can do, right? Other than that, nothing is in your hand. I know it's mind games, because when someone would reply, forward your resume, I will send in the referral. And I would not get any referral email. I would write. So that would play mind games on my head. That has it been sent? Has it not been sent? What's happened? But again, that is something that is not in our control. You did your job, reaching out. You sent your resume. That is all you can do. What you can do is maximize this number. Maybe reach out to 10 people from Meesho, 10 people from, let's say, Myntra, whatever you're looking for, whatever company you're looking for, wherever there are openings, right? One person would share your email or share your resume. You would get the call saying that, we are scheduling your interview. So this is how, for Info Analytica as well as for eClinical Works, right? I knew someone who's working in the company, right? And that's how I found out. I sent them my resume, they forwarded it, and after 1 month, I got the call for my interview. So again, we can't keep it just that, I've sent my resume today, tomorrow I should get the call. That we should have a realistic timeline, because I was in the place where I would also be like, my God, why haven't I got the call? I have sent my resume, right? But we have to stay calm, focus on sending out our resume to other people. Initially, out of 10, we might get 2 calls, but that is also something.
I think there are two further things that I noticed. That one is, while the sales background might not be relevant for the data science role, but I think this mental fortitude that gets developed being in any sales role, and this is one thing that I have seen. That, see, guys, generally one thing important to note in mind is that, and it is also kind of, in Hindu mythology, Indian mythology, Gita also has the same thing, that your right is effort. Your right is not the outcome, right? So Hitesh here has posted Aaron's resume as well. So guys, please feel free to use that.
And guys, resume building, I saw some questions. the resume, the way I built it was through, the mentor sessions that take place at Scalar. I connected with them. The mentors helped me design my resume. That is how I did it. You all could do the same way. Again, I saw some questions about my non-tech background, right? What I did was I just wrote my experience, what I had, right? I did not lie. I did not try to manipulate it.
Yes.
I just wrote, this is my experience, and wrote mainly about my project work and my skills. That was how I designed my resume in terms of people were asking in terms of non-tech. Just wrote my past experience and mainly focused on the project work and my skills. That was how I designed.
No, so I think this is very, very important. I will double emphasize on that. That guys, companies care about that. See, like again, I can talk about from the other side of the table. Let's say if I'm taking someone's interview for a role, what I care about is that do I have confidence that if I bring this person in, would he be able to deliver the job that I want to assign to him? Or like if he or she, if I have confidence this person can do that, I will hire the person. If I do not feel so, I would not hire the person. Even if there is person with experience, but if I feel that this person would not able to do what I want him to do, I will not hire the person. Even if it is a fresher, but I clearly see that this person can deliver what I want him to deliver, I would hire the person. Right? And maybe you can talk about that. You first got one offer, then you got another offer.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk about that.
Yes. So one thing I would want to add for this is, I know, see guys, we like, even I ultimately we do a job upskilling, and other side we do a job to get a good salary, right? That is the ground truth, and we shouldn't shy away from it, right? But when I was applying after my past job that I left, right, which was a good decent salary, when I was applying, I was not looking at salary, right? I was open to whatever salary they offer me, be it 4 LPA, 5 LPA, any amount, right? I was ready to take it up because I know based on my capability, in 1-2 years the salary will get good enough, right? Because that is how we all know, like in tech, it's based on how you work, how you perform, you are rewarded accordingly, correct? Now, the first offer that I cracked on Info Analytica was around 5 LPA, correct? Which was something that I did not think this is too less for me. Let me ignore this. Let me still apply for anything else. No, I did not keep salary or something that in my mind, right, when I was applying. Because what I was focused on was getting into a job where my skills are going to be very, very polished. In 1 year, I develop a lot of skills. In 1-2 years, I become so confident, so hands-on that after 2-3 years, let's say I think of a jump, I can jump anywhere. That was the mindset that I was following. And again, eClinical works when I got the second offer. The offer was 10 plus LPA, which was almost double, right? And that is something that I did not have in my mind. But again, I believe while applying for a fresher data analyst role, initially, let's not keep salary in our mind. Let's focus on what sort of skills the job is going to help you gain. That is something like the job description, right? There is no point landing a 10-11 LPA job if you're just going to work on Excel, right? After going through the program, might as well take a 6-7 LPA job, which is making you explore in terms of databases, Python, coding. This is something visualization. You're going to get so much exposure. So for me, my mindset was focusing on a job which covers skills. That is something that was going to help me. My focus was that.
Here I can give you my own example. When I graduated from college, almost now it is 14, 15 years, I had 2 offers. One which was paying me almost 30-40% less than what the other job was paying me. And another friend of mine, like we both had both the offers, right? Now, like thanks to the guidance of some of my seniors, and like I knew that the quality of work at one company versus other was like the quality of work at the company where I ended up taking even the smaller offer was substantially higher compared to the other company, which was a very large MNC, very old school work, right? My friend joined there. On a horizon of 5 years, however, my income level was almost 4 times my friend's income level. The reason for that is that even if my starting salary is low, but at that work, if I'm learning things which are very cutting edge, if I'm building very strong skills, see, in IT, your job is not a manual laborer job where you are just doing the work and you are getting money and you are making your day work. The biggest value of your job has to be what do you learn at that job, because that learning is going to give you exponential growth in your career, right? Even if you take up a job which is paying twice, but if you are not learning at that job, you will remain stuck at that forever, right? It's your growth rate in the career that matters rather than what your starting point is. I have another example from Scalar alumni from almost 5 years back. Because now, unlike you all, you are just about to graduate, you will maybe build your career. This guy started his career 5 years back. So I have seen his journey in 5 years, how he evolved after his first job. I remember he had a job offer paying him about 7 lakhs per year or so, and another job offer paying him 10 lakhs per year. He reached out to me that, sir, these are the two offers. I'm thinking 10 lakhs. Of course, this company is paying me more, so I'll take that up. But I'm a little confused. He came and said that I know that the company which is paying me 4 lakhs is a startup. The quality of work is really good. The people I will be working with seem very smart, but I'm confused what I should do. After understanding all the details from him, my advice to him was, dude, take that 7 lakhs. You are 21-year-old today. 3 lakhs here or there in your income is not going to make any meaningful change in your life. That's the fact. See, 3 lakhs extra means 2 lakhs after tax, means barely 10,000 rupees per month extra. Now, 10,000 rupees per month extra is not going to have meaningful change in your life. That guy today, make a guess what would be his salary today. I connected with him. This was another very interesting anecdote in Bangalore. I was just picking up my specs. I had given them for repair. And this guy was eating pani puri there. So he identified me, touched my feet. It was very overwhelming for me. This guy is making 70 LPA today.
Wow.
10x growth. Now this is happening not because, see, trust me, I'm telling you, this is not happening just because he studied at scale. That gave him launchpad. But even after that, he took up roles where he continued learning a lot. Optimizing for that 3 lakhs here might lead to losing a lot more in the long term, right? So, greedy algorithm versus dynamic programming. What greedy algorithm says is that there might be few decisions where you just see whatever is the highest choice at one variable, I'll pick that. Dynamic programming, however, sees that what would be the optimal outcome after 10 steps, right? And then you make those choices right now, even if that might seem like lesser on a certain variable. Those who might have studied dynamic programming and greedy algorithms would relate with it. But in your career, apply dynamic programming. Think about that, what kind of decisions will lead to right outcome, not just today, but after 4 years, after 5 years. And fundamentally, that will be rooted in where do you get to do higher quality of work? Where do you get to learn more at the job also? I think there was one follow-up question, Chetan, that while you briefly talked about using LinkedIn as a strong platform, is there any other platform, any other sites that you also use for application that you found to be useful?
See, I applied along with LinkedIn. I applied on Indeed as well, but again, I had no luck. If I would say from Indeed, I was doing my part of apply, but I did not get any call. I was even applying on Naukri and Indeed, but I did not get any calls from there. Again, as I said, like the 3 calls that I did get for an interview were through referrals, was right, but it was not through applying on the company portal. So, in my opinion, referral is something that would it helps you a lot compared to just directly applying on the government.
Maybe in continuation to this question, I will ask you on that if you could talk about your rejection in the interview, both at KPMG and Scalar. You reached to the final round, you got rejected. What were the things that were asked to you, and how did you reflect back on them and corrected on them? Because see, one very important process is that interview rejection, your resume rejection, all of them are bound to happen. There is no one in the world who could say that I got offer to every company that applied. It will never even happen to me, right? But what is very important is that we take learnings from each rejection. when you get rejected in an interview, you reflect that what could I have done better, right? So Arun, if you could talk about your KPMG last round interview and even Scalar last round interview,
Sure.
that would be super helpful for everyone.
Sure. So when I think about my experience in the final round of the Scalar, product analyst intern role, as well as the KPMG data analyst role, that final round was purely, I would say, 80% questions based on SQL. Okay. The KPMG interview had a few Python questions as well, right? They asked a few Python questions, which I did not know 2-3 of those questions, right? SQL questions I could solve, but Python questions I did not know a few. So at the end of the interview, I sort of knew that this could be dicey. Okay, because again, I knew that I did not know those 2-3 questions, Python questions that were there. When I talk about the SQL, interview questions that were asked to me on the Scalar final round, I would tell you, I think I solved almost all questions that were there. Right? I believe I could solve all the questions, but the interview asked me if I could do this, if I could write this particular query in another way. That is where I was a bit hesitant and I got stuck, right? So again, that is something after the interview I felt, maybe they were looking for someone who could write queries in multiple ways, right? Not just one particular approach. Maybe I knew that approach as well, but at that particular point, that approach did not, strike me. So after these 2 interviews, what I focused on is maybe my basics of Python getting a little more stronger, right? Because questions could be asked based on them, as well as what my approach was for SQL was to practice SQL in such a ways where I know multiple approach to a single question, right? Because we know SQL queries can be written not just in one manner. There can be a long way, there can be a short way, it can be used using CTEs, it can be used using subqueries, right? But at that moment, if the interviewer wants subquery, you have to give subquery. You can't say, I do not know, right? Because then that's a negative point, correct? And again, there may be like my interviews that took place at eClinical Works, there were a few questions that I did not know. I did not know all the questions, but the questions that I attempted, it was good enough for them that, okay, this guy knows something maybe. So it doesn't mean if you solve all the questions, you'll get selected, but it does not mean even if you couldn't know questions, you might not get selected. You can get selected. At the end of the day, it's the interviewer. What you can focus on, what the things that are in your control is covering all round basics on all types of questions. Research about more questions. Build like a question bank. There is an app called Notion. Okay, Notion. You could download that app. What you could do is you could all interview questions that you have, the interview question and the query, you can have it saved in that app. So before an interview, you are just browsing through those queries. You can understand these are important. You could practice them. That was also a form of practice I was doing by, following that Notion document for SQL queries. That is something that you guys could also practice.
Sabrish has a question that have you worked on Kaggle? Would you recommend it?
Okay. Kaggle, I have not worked on. In my this where I actually worked on was just GitHub, because whatever projects that I had done, I would upload it on GitHub. Again, in my resume, I had not kept the GitHub link, but you guys could definitely attach your GitHub link to your resume. That is an extra boost or extra sort of affirmation it gives to the recruiter that they can even go and check out your projects that you have done. That is definitely something that you guys do.
So guys, but in general, Kaggle definitely is a great platform. If you do have time, again, I would say that prioritize making sure that first year all the assignment and homework and case studies are completed. Do not get distracted until that is done, because that is foundation, right? Now with this foundation, once you have built strong knowledge, Kaggle definitely is a very good platform to build a profile, compete on, because if you have a strong Kaggle profile, that also becomes a very strong pull for employers to shortlist the resume, right? Now, while building a strong Kaggle profile takes time, but if you have built, let's say, over 6 months, 9 months, slowly, if you build a strong Kaggle profile, that generally becomes a good lever for employer to see at a signal that you definitely have strong capabilities on the subject. there was one question from Bhuvan, which I think would be very helpful for people. That if you could maybe Aaron talk about that across the 7 rounds that you went through in clinical work, what were those 7 rounds were,
Okay.
and how did they go? How did you tackle them?
Okay. So I would say out of 7, one round was HR, right? So we could maybe 7. The HR round we could keep it aside because that was like a final round. But the 6 rounds that I had, right? The first 2 rounds were honestly a screening round for me. I had one interview with the lead staff engineer who sits in the US for eClinical Works. He took my interview. And the second screening round I had with my current team head, who's the engineering manager, as well as 2 other employees from the Bangalore team, where currently I'm a part of that team. So the first round that I had, a screening round, the interview was mainly on my projects. He asked me questions based on the projects that, first of all, what was the project about? How did you tackle this project? What was the output of this project? He wanted to know if I have clarity for each and every project. Then he went to the details of, okay, the first step, data pre-processing. How did you do it? Visualization. How did you do it? Okay. He was asking me questions based on that. The second screening was questions based on my resume as well as a few SQL questions, right? To see if I have basic understanding on SQL as well as resume questions. They asked me questions based on my previous profile that was sales. They were interested to know what sort of work I did because they wanted to know in sales we have to work on Excel, right? So they wanted to know in sales, how did you use Excel? How often did you use Excel? Those are the sort of questions they were asking me. The other 4 rounds after that were proper interview rounds, technical rounds, where first 2 rounds were purely SQL and advanced SQL questions. The third round, I believe, after the first to the third round was focusing on Python libraries and visualization. And the 4th round was focusing on data science related questions as well as machine learning questions. Now, machine learning questions at that point, I had not started with the machine learning module because I had gone for a course pause because I wanted to focus on it. I had gone for a course pause for 1 month because I was focusing on interviews. So machine learning, I directly told them that my knowledge is very limited. They also understood. They asked me basic questions, which I could answer. Deep questions they asked me, I did not know. I told them I don't know. But data science questions, they were focusing upon. Like they were asking about difference between correlation tests, between Spearman correlation, as well as, other correlations that are there. Different types of distributions that are there, right? These were the data science questions that they were asking. So, and finally, I had like a one final interview, which was a HR as well as with the VP of data analytics, who again sits with the US. So technically, these all were covered. So if I relate them in terms to the DSML module at Scalar, again, like I said, SQL, Python libraries modules was covered the most. But the data science module that we have, like the data science beginner module, that was also covered for me. Whereas for other interviews, KPMG, that was not covered, but here it was covered. So that is also something you could take into consideration.
Makes sense. Mohammed Talha has a question that what is the strategy behind preparing the assignment questions for the modules? Answering them would cover all the complexity level. So Talha, see, what we do is that both for the topics and the assignments, we try to reverse engineer it from what is being asked in the companies, right? Because net the goal is that we have to, like as we say, that the reason for our traditional education not to work is because there's a misalignment between what the industry wants and what is being taught, right? So what we try and make sure is that at a very high frequency, we keep trying to observe that, let's say, for example, when any of you are going in for an interview or assignment being given, we like, of course, these might not be same questions, but because it's not memorizing the solution to the questions, but understanding them. But assignments and homeworks and the case studies are designed in a way to ensure that all the kind of concepts and problems that companies want you to be solving in their hiring process, you should become eligible to do that. Next question on the top is from Shubham, or rather now it has shuffled. It's question from Ayush, which is, did you rely solely on interview opportunities provided by Scalar, or or you applied on your own? If so, what was your approach? So while we have talked about it, but again, given this has come up once again, maybe let's
Sure.
explore.
So again, I did not solely rely on anything. I was only focused on giving as many interviews as I can to land a role. So you can't have that thing in your head where only scalar, I'll rely on this, it will get me a job done. That is not the way. It is not possible only that. Scalar, the portal, see, first even I had the thing, I'm going to rely only on scalar and I'll get it done. But I realized that is a way to boost my help, not be the sole thing of help that is there, right? Along with LinkedIn, others can refer the scalar portal, but I can. So I was referring the scalar portal, I was referring LinkedIn, I was referring Indeed, Naukri, talking to people about referrals, any medium possible, I was referring to land an interview.
No, so Ayush and guys, very important that see, just like sales process, right? The wider you make your surface area, the higher is your probability of success, right? While scalar portal is there, while that career team is there, that is your added advantage. But if you see that, let's say someone who is not part of skills, right? Now this guy is using 10 other resources also, does not have access to scalar resource. You also have access to all other resources, but you also have access to scalar resources. Someone who uses everything will have an edge. But if someone says that I'll limit myself to scalar and cut off all other channels, then suddenly you are at a disadvantage, right? Because you are not leveraging all other resources that are available out there. Same goes to even your studies, that you should cover everything that is there in scalar. That is your added advantage. But if you say that now I am not going to explore anything else, then you will do a disservice to yourself. Right? It's a big world out there. You should not cut out any channel. Wider surface area you keep, higher is the probability of success. Eventually, once you have options, so for example, when Aaron had 2 options, then you figure out that out of all the options across all the channels that I have built for myself, what do I want to choose? But when you are in the exploring phase, do not kind of cut off any channel, any approach, any outreach that could help you. Next, let's take these 2 last questions, Aaron, and then talk about your first 2 months in your first data science role, that what your learning path is, what difficulties you faced, or how you are enjoying this new role, right?
Okay. Yeah.
On the top, there's a question from Ritamay, which is, I'm from an academic research background. You have done PhD in physics. Right now, at age of 36, I have started scalar. Will it be hard for me to land a job as DA with this background and this age? Ritamay, before Aaron responds to it, maybe I can take a dig at it, because I have seen more such. While Aaron's journey is different, your journey is different. Probably in one of the future sessions, I'll try to bring in someone with your kind of background who have successfully transitioned with this background. Short answer, it is definitely possible. It will take some efforts. In that session, we will talk in depth at what kind of efforts it took the person. But there's an upside as well, right? So see, generally data science as a field is something now which has gotten into every field, right? Even let's say pharmaceutical, for example, Aaron is working in a company which is deep into pharmaceutical, right? You being a PhD holder in a domain of physics, I must say that, respect for that. I know it is not easy to complete PhD in physics, right? There are companies, there might be roles. So there are 2 options that you would have in front of you. One is that you take up a entry-level data science role in any domain. It could be pharma, it could be, any other domain, right? Which is definitely an option. If a company is able to see that you have a strong command on MySQL, Python, etc., where you can deliver the role at an entry-level role, they would hire you. Don't worry about that, right? See, the company, as I said, if I'm hiring, I don't care whether your age is 20 or 30 or 40. What I care about is that the role you are coming in for, would you be able to deliver for that? Keep in mind that in that case, you will have to start at the same level where Aaron started, right? And which is still okay, because the compensation in field are not bad, and you could grow a lot from there. The second kind of role that you could also try to explore is that companies which might have, let's say, a data science research like work happening, which is more related to physics PhD thesis that you might have done. Now, of course, this is a very narrow, very niche thing. It might take you time to identify such opportunities. What I would suggest is apply to all the roles, get started with something in data science, and keep exploring if you find opportunities which are at the intersection of your past background. So that is my suggestion for you or people with similar background. Aaron, if there is something that you would also like to add, this is your exposure, please.
No, I 100% agree with you, Abhimanyu, that again, it is definitely possible. What you have to focus on is just building those skills. Once you're ready, you have to reach out. If you do land an interview, they would not care about your age, your past learnings, anything, right? It is, you just have to have that mindset that this is what I want to do, and you have to focus on that thing, just building those skill sets. That is all you have to focus on.
So lastly, let's Aaron close this session with give us, your last 2 months, last 1.5, 2 months, how the work is, how your fundamentals knowledge that you built in the course, how you are applying them, any difficulties, any challenges that you faced, and how you are tackling it.
So my first 1.5 to 2 months have honestly been really amazing. Like, the experience has been very, very great. Being eClinical Works being a healthcare product company, right? From this 1.5 months, I had 3 weeks of just training, right? Where apart from the cultural training and everything, we had proper 10 days of product training, because the product is something that you have to know, right? Before actually working on it. So apart from that, once my training and everything was done, and when I joined the product development team, the team has been very welcoming in terms of me giving me that option to explore, right? They are giving me work based on SQL. They are giving me work based on Python. I am actually closely working with a senior data scientist, right? So my work 1 year, 2 years down the line will be on specifically on machine learning projects. That is there. But again, before the machine learning projects comes a lot of data pre-processing, comes dumping the lot of data in databases, right? So that sort of work is being given to me right now, where even if I don't know, even if I know, they are just keeping open that you learn. The first 6 months, they are, even after joining, they are like, you have to learn a lot. Learn about machine learning models. Just they add me to different scrum calls to see what all projects are being discussed, right? They have given me that opportunity to explore stuff, to learn stuff, and to reach out if whatever doubts that are actually there. So 2 months has been majorly on a lot of learning different concepts, working on actual data that is being used. But yeah, the experience has been really good.
Fantastic, Aaron. Great, guys. So towards the end of the session, I would, as I mentioned, we will do this every weekend, right? I hope you all found this session to be very, very useful. It's possible that some of you might have questions that we couldn't cover in this session, right? But as I said, we will keep doing this every weekend. We'll keep bringing in, alumni from different kind of backgrounds. In your comments, if you could post what all, what kind of people you want to bring in. Someone had mentioned that if we could bring in someone from domain analytics background, someone who gotten into marketing, sales, analytics kind of role, definitely I have taken a note for that. Great thing is that, like, the community is so powerful, it's only about just using it in the right way, right? So thank you so much, Aaron, for being one for all and all for one.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It was really a pleasure.
Fantastic. But guys, I look forward to see all of you and many more people every weekend. And most importantly, I look forward to hosting many of you in similar sessions. Just when we were getting started before the session, I was telling Aaron that today he's on the other side of the dashboard, where he's using the instructors tool. So I look forward to be hosting most of you, if not all, in similar sessions in future.
I remember when I just joined the program, I was sitting there asking all the questions. So it's a big 360.
Fantastic. No, and I can see you're a fantastic teacher. So hopefully, maybe with some more experience,
maybe. One day, surely.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, guys. All the best to all of you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a bunch, Aaron.
Thank you, Abhimanyu. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, I could in some way help all of you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Check out Scalers Masterclass by industry leading experts only on Scalers event page. Link is in the description below.